Hello everybody, Zelfie here, and while I don't normally cover pocket content, it's something I'd like to do in the future, and why not rectify that now? We have the whole Space-Time Smackdown set being revealed to us tonight, and I would go over and review all the cards and give my first opinions. I will have all the other cards pulled up from these sets, but if you haven't played Pocket yet, it's very similar to the mainline TCG. The biggest difference is like energy kind of auto ramps itself. There's a lower power level, 20 card decks, and then 2 max copies of a card in your deck. And yeah, let's go ahead and get started. We have the Oddish here, and I do want to quickly pull up the other stuff that we can compare it to, which is the Oddish, the Gloom, and the Vileplume. And I do think that the old Oddish seems slightly better. I'd rather get the 20 attack than the healing that probably won't be relevant. I also do think this Gloom is a little bit better, doing 30 but only for 1 energy. And then the Bell also does 80 for 2 energy, which honestly isn't that great. I probably wouldn't go into this as the payoff, where at least with the other Vileplume, you're putting the opponent to sleep. So about 50% of the time when they miss the coin flip, you are doing 160 damage with this Pokemon, which can be rewarding, but 80 and then having to take a hit after that is not really that great, so I don't think this Bellossom is going to make an impact. We have the Tangela, and I do believe we have another Tangela here. I don't recall this guy ever being good. 240 for Absorb. Yeah, I mean, I'd still take the other one, because this one, even though he has a higher retreat cost, having a little bit more HP, and then also being able to heal a little bit of damage seems nice. Let me just go ahead and double check. Yeah, heal 10 damage. Yeah, I'd rather just take the 40 damage, because if you're not attacking for an energy cheaper, then this is fine. And it seems like you'd probably just want the Leaf in your deck anyways, so you can retreat easier. Tangrowth, on the other hand, is kind of beefy. Dealing 90 damage for 4 energy is obviously an overcommitment, but at least you're getting some healing out of this. My only issue with this type of card is it would compete for the same type of deck strategy that you would do with Venusaur. If Venusaur, first off, gets a little bit extra damage, not that it's too relevant for like the benchmarks, because 190 isn't going to be like breaking anything here. But the big thing is that you definitely need more HP when you're playing Venusaur, and Tangrowth can get knocked out kind of easily, so if you're playing against like Mewtwo, then you will get knocked out immediately, which really does suck. And so even if you stack this other healing effects, I don't think it's going to surmount, because having a lower HP is going to suck, and you're still committing the same amount of energy. Perhaps if you were getting this for a little bit cheaper, it might be worth it, but but if you're going to be putting the same amount of energy, you might as well just, run the Venusaur EX. The Yanma is brand new, seems okay. 20 damage is a lot for a colorless. And we have the Omega EX, it does 120 damage and then discards a random energy off that guy. But the key is that that's all colorless energy, which can be okay. And 120 is like not a bad benchmark to be hitting, because if Pikachu is still good, then this will knock out a Pikachu, and then I know there's going to be some more powerful dark types coming up. So I do think there's some potential for this to be Splash, but I think we have to see, what's it called? I think we have to see the dark type Pokemon that will be in the set first, before I can make an opinion, because this is almost entirely predicated upon the Splash. Is like 3 energy for 120 is like, okay, you'd probably find similar value in some other Pokemon, but, this is most determined as, like, is this playable or not, Roselia does okay damage, seems okay. And then this one just poisons the opponent for 50 damage. This seems too low power level. 2 energy for 50 damage on a 100 HP beat stick is probably just not going to compete with it. Because I think like the benchmark is like how well can they handle Pikachu EX. Pikachu EX is just a standard, decent attacker with 2 energy for 90 damage. I suppose you could also make the comparison to like Starmie too, because Starmie would do very similar things. And so the question is does this compete with any of that? And the answer is not really. Unless there's like a massive poison buff somewhere in the set, then I don't see any reason why you would want to poison the opponent. We actually have a regular Torterra here, and then a Turtwig and Grotto line. I really don't like these 2 energy, 3 attack, or 3 energy guys, because it messes with their curve a lot, because by the time you want to evolve the Grotto, you might only have 2 energies on it, and so you're not going to be able to attack with it. And the payoff of only doing 150 damage and then having to recover for a turn really sucks. So this is going to be like too slow. And even though the HP pool is kind of nice, you'll be dodging certain KOs like Executor has to hit 2 heads against you, for example, to knock you out. Just like isn't great. So I can't really recommend it. If you really want this type of damage output, oh well, yeah, if you really want this type of damage output, you should be just playing Zelfie EX, because that's a basic, and you know, the stage 2 that you have to evolve into can be a bench sitter, and having it sit on the bench is relevant, because it means that you're not losing the Pokemon that you put all the effort to. That's what makes like Gardevoir nice, is because Gardevoir usually isn't in threat of danger, and so, you know, you put in that effort against the stage 2, but you don't have to do it again. Or if you're trying to play with a stage 2 attacker, it kind of has to end the game, which is why we haven't seen a lot of stage 2 attacking decks really make it out in the meta, with like the only notable ones being like kind of Charizard, and then also kind of Venusaur. Everything else has been like a stage 1 or a basic Pokemon for the most part, unless if the stage 2 is a support mob, like we've seen in Superior, or Greninja, or Gardevoir. The Kricketune confuses the opponent. Same type of deal as like the Roserade, except this one has even less HP, which means this one gets knocked out by a Pikachu flat, and Confusion isn't that great of a status effect to be passing around. Wormadam, flip a coin, if heads, this does 30 more damage. For 3 energy, you could definitely do better than maybe 90 damage. Even Executor EX for 1 energy can do, you know, 80 damage for 1 energy on a coin flip. And if you play the Giovanni, then it'd be the same exact amount as this, with way more HP. I do really like the Combi having just Call for Family here. Makes it kind of nice, but the Vespic one isn't doing like anything astounding. 2 energy for 70 is probably about standard with a decent HP pool, but these type of Pokemon just don't succeed because they don't fulfill any type of niche that you would need in the game outside of just being a beat stick. So maybe if you're playing like a low to the ground aggro deck, having the Combi is nice to maybe set something up, but it's not great. Carnivine, flip a coin, if it adds this does 50 more damage. On a basic, this has like some amount of merit, but it has an awkward energy association with it. Because with grass type Pokemon, you would want even breakpoints to work with like the superior jungle totem, for example. But with the Carnivine, you know, this requires 3 energy, which just kind of sucks. Definitely not like a Pokemon that I would consider. The Leafeon seems okay. It has 90 HP, 1 retreat, and then 2 energy for 90 damage, which is pretty standard. In fact, this is a little bit above standard if we are comparing it to the Vespiquen. And 90 damage is like an okay breakpoint because that's what Starmie does. Starmie can get away with that. Listen, Starmie's been falling a little bit out of favor, and even that Pokemon is a little bit more merits, just because it has a free retreat and a little bit higher HP pool. And I don't see any reason why like an EV Toolbox deck would want to run Sylveon at the moment, unless you're like... Yeah, I just don't know. I don't think this card has a place, though, like, this is probably one of the more notable cards we've seen so far. Flip a coin. If heads, discard random energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. I actually don't think this guy is kind of bad. You have a Mawile Crunch, which seems okay. The only issue is that, like, you can't commit to energy denial being your whole strategy, just because, 1, this is on a coin flip, and 2, energy generation is infinite in this game, where I know people thought, like, Mawile might be good, because it can kind of infinitely stall. This attack seems like okay. There's a world where I could see this playing out, because grass is already a taking archetype anyways, and so if you get additional turns to heal with like effects like the next card that I see right here, then there is a chance that this type of effect could be good. Though I wouldn't pray on this card being good. I wouldn't, you know, I would expect it to show up in like a tier 3 strategy, as opposed to being like a tier 1. I think this card is interesting. Healing 10 from all your Pokemon seems kind of weak, but also like most things in Pocket are greatly weak into how good they would be in the base game. And so, I think healing 10 damage from everything is just like a little extra boost. I think it does give these healing strategies a little bit of merit, especially because Grass already has a lot of these. And also notably, I think this plays around a future card that I know is coming up in the set really well, being the Cyrus, that can pull anything into the active as long as it has damage counters on it already. So I think having this type of a healing effect can maybe be nice, because it can save you from game like a Pokemon boss up that had to take like 10 damage in the early game or something. We have like our third Magmar. Take an energy zone. Honestly, this doesn't seem bad if the Mag Mortar is really good. And the Mag Mortar does 100 damage, it burns them. Is this good? Honestly, I think this one has a little bit of merit because there's no downside to like this attack. It's not like you're discarding energies or requires upkeep. You can sort of Moltres swing this up really quickly, or you could just go ahead and use Magmar to charge this up kind of quickly. It'll do decent damage. I think 4 is a little bit too much, but I believe the burn status effect. I don't know how burn is going to work in this game because I don't think anything burns yet. Burn typically, like the TCG is like deals 20 damage and your opponent has to flip a coin. If they hit heads, they get cured from the burn, but if they don't, they stay burned. So this is the potential to do a minimum of 120 damage for 4 energy on a 1 prize Pokemon. This doesn't seem that bad. Yeah, I kind of vibe with this. It doesn't have great synergy with Blade stuff that we've seen before, because we have... wonder if all this will load. Where's Blade? Blade will do 30 more damage if you have a Magmar, but we don't have any Magmars that would really want to be ran with this guy, because it seems like we're focusing more on like the high damage aspect. And so this Magmar is good because it rams up the energy. Obviously, you wouldn't play this in your Blade decks either, but, you know, just thought I'd mention that. Magcargo, I love this guy, but 30 damage to burn, and then having a 3 restraint cost is kind of killer. Anything higher than 2 is really mean, because at least with 2 you can play Leaf, and Leaf is not that bad. Leaf is pretty good. And then, you know, even with an X speed, you don't feel bad about retreating, but having 2 on this guy kind of sucks, and his damage output isn't good enough, because on average, you're probably going to do like 50 damage, and 2 for 50 is just not great when we got Pikachu swinging for 90. Out of the only starters, Infernape was the only one to actually get an EX, which is interesting. It makes me think that like Torterra and Empoleon might come in our mini set, but we'll have to see. And 140 damage for 2 energy is also kind of not that bad. It's a really good rate. The only issue is that like this is discard all 5 energy, so you can't bank any energy. You can't like overcommit your energies. Like you could Mewtwo, for example. So with Mewtwo, if you have 3 energies attached and a Gardevoir in play, you can manually attach Gardevoir, and then you would have to use the attack to discard 2 energies. And then we could just attach 1 more energy to your Mewtwo, and then still be able to side transfer over to it. But here, you can't bank any extra energies, so like if your Moltres can ramp 3, then you're never getting value out of that 3rd energy, which kind of sucks. I think this has some merit. I think the numbers are pretty good, but I think the ability to like set this up consistently is gonna be a little bit rough. This guy, flip a coin, 30 damage, probably not good. It just seems like, you know, we don't need this type of Pokemon in the game, especially because like you have the Rapidash. And the Rapidash sure is stage 1, but one, it could get a buff from Blade, letting it do way more damage. I'm talking about this Rapidash, by the way. And 2, the payoff is way better. It could swing for 100 damage for just simply evolving. And evolving is really not that much of a tax. The good basic Pokemon in this game are only good because they have good damage for the most part. So things like Celebi and Pikachu are like good. Same thing, Mewtwo. Like those Pokemon are all good because they do damage, not necessarily at that because they're basic Pokemon, but because their damage is easy, accessible, and you know, convenient. Anyways, there's definitely not a lot of fire Pokemon, but that was a lot of grass types. We got the whole Swinub line. Oh, I will say, I think the Chimchar and Monferno are pretty good though. This whole line seems pretty good. Since you don't have to commit a lot of energies, and you're always going to get your value. So if you're going second, doing 20 is okay. And if you're going first, being able to do 30 damage for 1 energy is just neat. Can help you like kill like an opposing Infernape, for example. I don't think we have too many mods where like the Infernape wouldn't kill it outright, but that you would need the Fiery Punch to kill it, but it's still nice to have. It can kill like a Magikarp too. Swinub, 40... cool. I don't like this type of attack. I've already talked about with like the Turtwig and the Groudle, but this messes with the curve so much because you're just gonna remain passive. Think that 20 less from fire or water Pokemon. I don't think that's great. I mean, it's nice to have It's not like an inconvenience to have or anything, but it's not like a good reason to play these guys. Because if you're only hoping to hit fire, like fire or water Pokemon have to be the only cards in the game for this to be worth it, and then maybe it's okay. But like the energy cost on all these guys is just really rough. Let's see. Prevent all effects of attacks used by your opponent's Pokemon done to this. So they can't burn you, for example. I don't think they can energy remove you. I'm trying to think of any other like effects that we apply to the opponent's Pokemon, but there really isn't a whole lot of them. A lot of the good Pokemon in the game just like do damage. Yeah, this card seems kind of whatever. I mean, 2 energy for 50 damage on a basic with 110 is kind of nice. Like the numbers are okay. I just don't think that a deck is going to prioritize using this over something like Articuno, right? So we have the baby Articuno that I actually think is like kind of decent. Where is he? Yeah, this guy. Because this guy has a positive effect on his attack for 3 energy, and it does 60 damage. The 60 is like kind of a relevant number, and you typically have extra energy generation in these decks anyways. So I think like this guy is maybe okay, and I'm trying to think if there's any other like basic water Pokemon that we attach to. That's kind of it. So this will only be compete with like baby Articuno. But also, we have a decent slew of Stage 1 Pokemon to play. Like, I think the Golduck and Psyduck is not bad because Headache is kind of a good attack. We have the Starmie, obviously. We have the Vaporeon as well from Mythical Island. Yeah, and even, like, I've seen some people experimenting with Lumineon as well. So really, I think, like, Water Pokemon are just good enough that you don't need this Regice for anything. And so it probably won't get played. Piplup has an okay attack. It just allows you to shrug something off if you're going first. It can't evolve. It's not the greatest because, you like, typically if you're going second, your attack should be doing damage. And so if you're going first, this won't do anything. And then by the time you evolve, it won't do much. So, whatever. Piplup does 30, it's whatever. And then we have Empoleon. Empoleon does 30 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. And I actually think this effect is, like, kind of good. Because, one, we have a new supporter that I'll talk about in a minute that allows you to pull a Pokemon up that has damage on it, but really just stacking up damage onto the opponent is nice. I don't think you play this Greninja because it's too much deck space. You'd be committing 12 of your Pokemon slots, and then only having 8 supporters, when I think, like, the supporter and item slots are actually getting, like, kind of competitive with each other. So I think, like, if you run the Empoleon, you might run this with, like, Articuno EX, for example. But it doesn't seem that bad. I actually think, like, out of all the curves we've seen so far, this Empoleon has the most potential, because doing 110 damage for 3 energy is, like, kind of nice, especially on a 1-prizer with this much HP. Sure, you don't dodge Mewtwo thresholds without, like, a blue, for example, but it's still a lot of HP. You'll dodge Articuno, Pikachu. I guess you don't dodge triple head Celebi, but, you know, you can't get everything. I don't know, seems pretty good. I think this is the card that I think has the most potential so far. Let's see, Weasel does okay damage. This Stage 1 does 60 damage potentially. It's kind of like Baby Executor, but like the cool thing about like Executor, I'll go back up to him, is that he has 160 HP, bro. This guy's so big, so tanky, that like even though his attack has like mixed results on the damage, like on average you're doing 60 damage every swing, which doesn't like mathematically make sense. But just think about like over the course of 2 turns, you're gonna do 120 damage. Here, you're gonna do like 90 damage over the course of 2 turns. But this guy might also not live that long to do it. That said, he is easy to retreat out, so I think there's like some merit in the Floatzel, but the metagame has to be like really, really low to the ground. Like EX Pokemon have to not be good, and the game has to be overrun by like basic Pokemon with that are 1-prizers. We're seeing suboptimal. I think in that no EX format, this card might be really good, because like I said, like Baby Executor seems really good, but. Yeah, I don't have too much else to add on. Shellos has kind of an okay attack. I guess Water's just focusing on spread damage in the set, because I know the Palkia is coming up, and then the Empoleon also does this. Greninja does snipe, Articuno EX does snipe. This guy also does snipe, 50 damage. Is this good? 20 damage to 1. If it did to all of them, it might be relevant, but 3 energy for 60 and then 20 to one guy just doesn't seem that great. Because you get similar value out of the Greninja, but the Greninja first off allows you to stack it up if you have multiple Greninjas in the field, which is possible. Greninja can also target the active, and it costs 1 energy less. So I don't think the Gastrodon is good. I think it competes too much in the same slot that Greninja does, but Greninja just does it more efficiently and slightly better too. This card has text on it. The Coin of Heads. Oh, it's Dig. Okay. So Dig is a pretty good attack from someone who forced themselves to play Dugtrio for a little bit. This competes with... Oh, it competes with the other one. I mean, yeah, it's better. It's definitely... I think this is a marginal upgrade, because it's kind of what your guy lived. And then if that lives, you could go into this guy and then snipe afterwards. Because I don't think 1 energy for 50 damage is good enough. That said, I think for a stage 1 Pokemon, for 1 energy, this does the most amount of damage without any like caveats to it. Which is kind of crazy, because most of the time these attacks only do like 40 damage. I'm trying to think of a good example. Oh yeah. Like the Starmie right here will only do 40 damage. And we have a couple more Pokemon like this. Like, you know, there's this Whimsicott right here. I know there's a Golbat that does it. There might even be like oh, there's Electric. Yeah, there's Clefable. So the fact this guy does 50 damage, and the only downside seems to be that like he has 90 HP and the retreat costs him 1. Like, I don't know, it seems kind of good. Also, this art is really cute. I think this might be original art, because I don't remember actually seeing this art anywhere, but that's so adorable. Yeah. Alright, Snover. If they are a fighting Pokemon, do 30 more damage. If fighting types are good, this is a good attack. Otherwise, it's kind of whatever, and having 2 retreat sucks. You're not playing this to beat fighting types, though. And you're definitely not playing the Abomasnow, because, like, what is this? 4 energy for 120 damage? Pikachu, at this point, has already done 270 damage by the time this guy is charged up. I said, we do have, you know, energy ramp systems available to us, but, like, still. Glaceon. Oh, so this is just other Articuno. And I've already thought this Articuno was, like, decent. Like, in the first Emblem event, when I was playing, I played Articuno EX plus Greninja with, like, a low-cal Sabrina. Because, like, the ability to, like, Misty up an attacker is really strong. And everything that's, like, super low to the ground doesn't require much. So, I think that was, like, the nicest part. And this Articuno was, like, okay. It definitely won me 1 or 2 games off the coin flip. And so, I think, like, this Glaceon actually kind of has some potential, which is crazy. The Glaceon is definitely, like, one of the better attackers I've seen. I don't think you want to build a whole deck around this effect, but, like, if you're going to use an evolution attacker, the Glaceon is definitely, like, the best one so far. It kind of feels like the Jolteon, because the Jolteon also has, like, crazy damage output for what it is. Like, this guy, on average, is going to do 80 damage, but he has the potential to do more and herald the game out of his favor, which is really strong. The only issue with this Jolteon is that, like, you have to evolve from an Eevee, and so it doesn't fit into the Lightning archetype. So Jolteon has to be its own thing, and then, like, it's just way weaker without it. I'm not sure where the Glaceon fits in, but, like, that attack is nice. If you're running, like, a Vaporeon engine, and you have the extra deck space, running 1 Glaceon does not seem like a bad call. Alright, Rotowash. That guy does 30 damage, and it seems kind of whatever. I want to run this. You need a leaf to retreat it out. You have better things to dream on and wish for, and many stage 1 attackers. Because even for like 2 energy, Articuno is going to do 40, and afterwards is going to do 80. So by the time that this guy gets his value out, he's only doing 90 damage, where the other Articuno is doing 120 to the active, and then 10 to everything on the bench. Seems not great. This guy seems interesting though. This attack does 10 damage to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So this is really good because 1, this turns on the Cyrus, allows you to boss anything up, and 2, extra chip damage is kind of nice, especially when it's being spread on everything indiscriminately. Allows you to build up onto it. So low-key, I can see Frost Rotom picking up and being somewhat valuable especially if you're pairing it with like stuff like Greninja or any of the other sniping cards that we've talked about so far. And like if you go Frost Rotom plus Empoleon, I think that's like a low key decent take because like this will rack up some damage in the early game, and then while you're using like Misty maybe to possibly ramp up the Empoleon, then that could be a really deadly combo. I can definitely see it. And then we have Palkia EX. This is like one of the first big bad boys. And I will say, from Mythical Island, I really did underestimate Gyarados. I think this is the only card in the set that like I underrated. And then like there's like two cards in the set I overrated. So I was pretty accurate when I reflect back on my Mythical Island predictions. I did not expect this card to be as good as it is. I think partially that is that like the damage is really good. But the other thing is like the fact that you don't like lose too much. Sometimes you can lose your own energy from the attack, but it's like whatever, you just manually attach. It only matters if you're in the mirror match and then both of the Gyarados decide to target the same Gyarados. So that can be the only time where it matters. Here though, discarding 3 energies is a lot, and even though the payoff is really good, you don't have a way to bounce back from this. So I feel like you're going to spend most of the game ramping onto this guy, waiting for it to not pan out. I was originally going to say, I think this guy might be better than I think he is. Or, yeah, he might be better than I think he is. But the more I think about it, I just think there's better strategies. Like, I do think, like, Empoleon and Rotom Frost kind of have something going. And seems like it would be a really good payoff for all the sniping stuff. But it's way too overcommittal. And 30 damage to everything on the bench isn't going to kill anything. In fact, it's not even going to kill everything if you do this twice. It's going to take like 3 times for this to be like, okay, well, you might win the game off that attack. And then by the time you attack with it 3 times, the attack is probably winning the game. The only issue is that like, you're not going to be able to attach, 10 energies on this to attack 3 times? So I do think that Palkia may not be that great. I will say though, like out of the cards I've seen so far, I think I could be the most wrong about this card. The 30 damage could be maybe really good for setting something else up, but we're not sure yet. And then finally we have this Manaphy, and I think this Manaphy is actually kind of like really, really absurd. So the Manaphy allows you to ramp 2 energies for one energy. And typically with this type of effect, we haven't had a ramping effect this strong yet on a Pokemon attack. The only other effect that I can really compare this to so far is, well, we have a Lilligant. I think Lilligant was like, okay, you saw a little bit of this in Fringe play with like Venusaur because it gave you a bridge attacker and this guy would ramp an energy while still letting you do something productive. The issue is that like if the Lilligant goes down early, you wasted 2 energy attachments to maybe get like 1 energy attachment back. And so you technically went net negative for like 50 damage, which is whatever. Especially when the game plan of Venusaur is to out-tank everything, so having a bridge attacker like this sometimes doesn't make sense. And then the only other card I would compare this to is the Superior, because the Superior gives you double value on each of your energies, which is similar case here. But the difference here is that if this attacks twice, you effectively got 4 energies for 1 energy, and that's where this is going to be the strongest at. So if people can't kill this on turn 1, of this being out, or even like turn 2, then this card is going to high roll the game. I think that's where like this card becomes really meta dependent, because if people can answer Manaphy quickly, then this card isn't as great. But if people are going to struggle to answer the Manaphy, then what are you doing? Even then, if you only get this attack off once, you technically went net positive. That said, you will have to find another way to do something with that extra energy, since you don't want to spread out your energies too often, but this could be really nice. I could legitimately just see you pairing this with some... That's not it. We'll get back here. I can see you just like legitimately pairing this with like the Vaporeon that can move energies to one of your other Pokemon. And so, no, that will allow you to get a lot of value out of this stuff, or even just stuff in A1 where you can use like Articuno EX as a good attacker, or Baby Articuno, stuff like that. I think there's a lot of places where this will work. You can also maybe use this with the Dragonite. I kind of forgot about that guy until immediately at the second. Where is he? Yeah, Dragonite. Because he has water energy as its cost. So, you know, there's some value in that. I do think that like the Manaphy, Vaporeon, big Palkia Dream might be a little bit too optimistic. But I do think this Manaphy itself will be a good card, regardless of like Vaporeon or Palkia or whatever. I just think having the ability to get an extra energy and possibly an extra 3 energy for 1 energy chapter is so good. Also, the artwork is really good too. I really appreciate the art on this one. Cool. Now, yeah, that's all the water Pokemon. Like I said, I really think some of this stuff is strong. I think Manaphy is probably one of the best cards in the game. I think Runfrost and Napoleon have some possible synergy. We have the Magnezone. I think these guys are okay, but I do like the other Magnemite from Genetic Apex that does 20 damage, I believe. Where is he? Yeah, he does 20. And then you're definitely not running this Magneton over this one that charges energy. And then we have the Magnezone. I think the Magnezone has some decent potential because the fact that it can sit on the bench and then automatically charge to itself as a Magneton is really nice. It allows you to focus on other attackers. So I think that this could possibly slot into a Pikachu EX deck where before, like, you have the Magneton, it is kind of not a great attacker because it took too long to actually set up for this attack. But if you can just evolve into Magnezone, Blast for 110, that's a really strong because 110 plus 90 is going to one-shot everything. So this will allow you to get passing with things like Charizard Moltres, where, you know, if they set the Charizard, it might be game over for you. But here, like, this gives you a decent way of coming back from it all. So yeah, I do think the Magnezone is really strong. I think it can slot into Pikachu decks, and it might make its own sub-archetype of Pikachu. Is there anything else? Oh, we'll talk about some of the other Energy Ram stuff when we get to it. This Voltorb is funny, and I don't have anything else to really add on. It's nice if you're deciding to play the Electrode, though. And I do think, honestly, this Electrode is a little bit better than the current one we have. So even though the current one has Trainer Trait, I think it's like not super relevant outside of like starting with it, because you should probably be running X speeds in your Pikachu deck anyway, so if you can't retreat, it just seems like you got a bad draw. But I like this one a lot just because it more consistently can fulfill that role. So if you go second, if you go first, you can evolve into this immediately and then start doing 50 damage. And doing 50 damage for your base attack is kind of nice, because typically a lot of Pikachu attacks don't, or a lot of the attackers in Pikachu either do very small damage or require 2 energy, which is kind of why we see the Zebstrika be played as one of Pikachu's most common partners, because it's both like, oh, if you go first you can attack with this and not feel bad with it, but it can also follow up off the Pikachu EX attack. Like example, Pikachu EX does, let's just say in the mirror match, Pikachu EX does 90 damage to another Pikachu, Zebstrika could come in and finish it off, which I think is really strong. And this attacks for 1 energy, which, like I said, fills in that gap if you're going first, because if you're playing against another aggro deck and they get the first attachment, it can be really rough for you. So that's where I think like this attack can fall in and be okay. Whether Pikachu needs to run that, I'm not entirely sure, because they have so many options available to them that it's kind of hard to choose. Electabuzz, he is the same as Magmar, which is a pretty strong attack. That said, I actually really like the other Electabuzz, so this one can possibly do 80 damage for 2 energy on a basic, which is pretty good, like a basic 1-prizer. And then, honestly, I've really been liking this Electabuzz for the same reason that people like the Zebstrika, because it allows you to follow up off a Pikachu attack. So let's say you did like 90 damage to a Mew EX or to an Articuno or Moltres or something like that. That Electabuzz could come in and snipe it afterwards to get you the kill. Which I think is really strong. So I actually think that this one has slightly more competition than the Magmar does, because the other Magmars do their own thing for their own strategy, but that Magmar specifically works with the Magmortar. And that's not to say that it won't work with this Electivire either, because with this Electivire, you need 2 extra energies on it to do 120 damage, which I think is really strong. On a stage 1, 120 HP is a little bit too low, like a little bit lower than I wish it was, but it's 120 damage on the stage 1, which you don't get super easily with a lot of other Pokemon. I will have to briefly skip over the list and talk about Volkner real quick, because Volkner will allow you to move 2 energies from one of your lightning Pokemon or attached to YE energies from the discard into one of your Pokemon. In case you didn't know, yes, energies can end up in your discard. They end up there if you either retreat or lose the Pokemon. So, like for example, if you lose a Pikachu EX, you could go ahead and evolve into this and then use the Volkner to put 2 energies on it. And so if you've had the gap to put an energy onto it, that's great, because this attack will be ready. But also, I think this card is nice, because let's say you go first in an aggro matchup. You finally attack with your Pikachu EX, but it goes down, and now you're really far behind. But if you're able to play the Volkner on this, you get 40 damage on the run back. And usually like 90 plus 40 is enough to knock out a lot of those like aggro basics. It's enough to knock out like Celebi, for example, or an opposing Pikachu. So I think the numbers line up. And then once it starts swinging for 120, that's like really good. And then even better is that you have like the other Electabuzz, and you have this Electabuzz. And if you want to, you can also run the Charge one as well. Right here. So you really have a bunch of options available to you on like how you want to approach this. But as much as I think the Magnezone is good, I think the Electivire is so good for Pikachu. I think this might take over the Zebstrika slot as like the optimal like secondary attacker. I just think it's that good. This thing is like Tail Whip, except this Tail Whip only affects the active Pokemon, while this one affects itself. So this is slightly better. That's a good attack to have. And the Luxio doing 40 is okay, it's expected. And then we have the Luxray. Discard all lightning and then do 120. I think this requires too much upkeep. That's the same issue I've talked about with the Infernape, where you can't ever overcommit energies to this. So if you have 2 energies attached to this, let's say you go, like, you have 2 energies attached to this, if you use the Volkner, you're technically getting, like, a negative value, because you've lost an energy by using this attack. I don't think that the snipe is really good or really needed. I think doing 120 is kind of neat, but you just have way more efficient ways of actually getting the damage out, and choosing your target isn't going to help in this case. We have Pachirisu EX, which does 80 damage for 2 energy. Wow. This thing is like Pikachu EX, but with a different condition on it. I really don't have too much else to say about this card. I think this card is okay, depending on whether or not Pikachu runs tools. But as far as I remember, there's only 3 tools in the set, and I don't think Pikachu really wants to run any of them besides maybe the Cape. And if you're ready the Cape, you're ready for the Pikachu. It's like, I don't know, this card doesn't seem that great. Though, if you start thinking it outside the context of Pikachu EX, then because this becomes slightly better. So maybe you can play this like Dragonite, for example, because Dragonite is, well, we're pretty much done with all the lightning cards. So maybe you can play this in something like Dragonite, for example, where you need to ramp up a bunch of energies. And so, you know, the Pachirisu could be like your early game play, and then afterwards you can go into Dragonite and maybe do something after that, possibly. Or maybe you just run it with like Pidgeot or some other colorless attacker, because it's kind of, it's gonna be pretty neutral vibes where like you don't need a lot to get this running. The only thing kind of demands that like your energy pool is only lightning energy, which I guess removes my want to play in Dragonite, because you know you might get a water and this gets screwed. I don't know. I can see the Pachirisu working with some colorless attacker, but I don't see it working anywhere else besides, yeah, that's kind of it. Or, like, Pikachu just evolves into a build where you play, like, 2 Pachirisu, 2 Pikachu, and that's, like, it maybe, like, 2 Zapdos EX, and that just becomes the whole deck. You just play these EX attackers, and you try to run away with the game. So, who knows? This guy does 50 damage if they have a tool card. Probably not good, because like the tool cards are mostly defensive that we have. We have the Lumberry, which I think is bad and irrelevant. We have the Giant Cape, which would allow you to do like 10 extra damage to this, and then maybe more like if they don't knock you out immediately. And then they have the Rocky Helmet, I believe. I think that's all 3 of the tools, and those would kind of harm the run a little bit. I don't know, like I don't see a need for a tool hate card currently. Now we have kind of some more exciting cards here. I will have to jump back down to the supporters real quick, but we have the Togepi, good damage, Togekick, good damage, and then we have Togekiss, 2 energy, and then does 60 damage, but if you keep running this attack in, this will do 120 more damage. I will say, with effects like Sabrina, for example, I'm pretty sure you can get rid of this effect. So effects like this traditionally only last if they stay in the active, and this is going to catch people off guard. So if you play a Sabrina while the Togekiss is in the active and after using the Overdrive Smash effect, even if they retreat back out into this Togekiss, I believe the Overdrive Smash effect will be gone. Because it's typically how the game treats these effects, where it has to remain the active to maintain this buff. I could be wrong about that because I can't think of another example like this in the card game where we can get away with this. Yeah, I can't think of an example on Pocket that comes easily to my mind because most of the time you can't double retreat. The only possible way of double retreating is to like retreat and go into Mew or Weezing or anything that Koga can pick up, play the Koga or the Bunny Explorer, and then move back up. And then would that make you lose your buff or any other effect you had? It's hard to tell because I can't think of any genetic Apex card. But I do think like this card might be good, but if people are still playing a lot of Sabrina instead of swapping over to the Cyrus, which I think is still a good case because I think Sabrina is more universal than Cyrus is, then it's not going to look good for Togekiss because they could simply play it and then bump it away. That said, I'm still going to play into the hype because we also have one other card all the way down here that I have to talk about, which is the Cynthia. The Cynthia lets your guy do 50 more damage. Why is it 50? Who the hell knows? But, I'm not going to argue with taking 2 energy, 110 damage. That's really good. And then this could possibly be 2 energy, 170 damage. I'm really going to play into the hype with this. I think this could be a solid archetype. I don't say become the best archetype in the game, but it is, like, temptingly strong. But, if Sabrina ruins this effect, then it can be really bad. By the way, that's why you should subscribe to me instead of the other Pocket creators, because other Pocket creators don't know stuff about the base card game, and so they get stuff wrong all the time. But me, I'm so smart, ingenious. Yep, exactly. Anyways, rant aside, we got Mischievous 20 for 1 energy, seems pretty good. And then we have this one. Your opponent is confused for 2 energy and 70 damage. This is very comparable to Starmie, first off. Because if they flip tails, like they take 20 damage, so it'd be the same damage ratio. The confusion effect is kind of annoying. I don't want to be like optimistic on this card, but the confusion upside here is kind of nice because sometimes it's just going to steal away an opponent's turn. Though I do think it's too finicky. Like, people already hate Marowak EX, even though Marowak EX was a fine card. I think Marowak EX was better before Mythical Island came out and gave you a better attacker for that, like, fighting pile deck. But people really do not like Marowak EX. Therefore, I don't think they're gonna, like, miss Magius EX. I said, Marowak does have a lower low, but I do think it is a higher high in, like, just instantly killing something. So I can see people, I can see Miss Magius, like, being okay. But I think the game, I'm not so sure, because I'm not sure what changes with the overall meta until, like, I've looked at it a little bit further. The score seems okay, though. For EXs, this one gets a pass for being playable. We got the Ralts with Teleport. Teleport is really good, I think, because if you're able to teleport out into another Pokemon, this prevents you from getting hit by like 20 damage, which normally wouldn't be that relevant because Gardevoir is going to sit in the backline all game anyways. But it is nice because it means that the Ralts will be taking damage, which means they can't ever like boss up Cyrus up the Gardevoir and kill it. So I think like Teleport's pretty neat, and obviously you're gonna play this with the Glid that we'll see soon. I do want to look at the other Ralts real quick because I know they have like upsetting damage, like 2 for 30 and 1 for 10. Yeah, that's not great. I'd rather take this Curlia too, because if anything, I'd rather do 20 damage to my opponent than have to do like 2 for 30. Because if there's 2 energies on my Curlia, I think something has gone wrong. If there's 1 energy on my Curlia, like, that's okay. Because that means I'm probably waiting to like charge up my Mewtwo or something else like that. So I'll take that. And even then, like, that curves out into the Gardevoir just a little bit better. Because then you can Side Shadow to it and use our attachment for a turn, so I think it's in a good spot. I do like this. I like both of these a little bit better than the current ones that we have. Duskull does 20 damage. Cool. Cyclops, or Dusclops, breaking the curve here by becoming the throwing energy attack. Okay, what a weirdo. Not great. And we have Dusknoir. Soft is like choose one of your Pokemon's damage on it and move all of it to this Pokemon. That's a crazy text to have on it. Huh. I'm not quite sure what to think of this. So, on one hand, you get to remove your damage, like remove damage from one of your Pokemon and add it to this. So if you're playing a tanky sort of EX Pokemon, you have to move all the damage on it. So I guess this is like what's good for this is that let's say you have an EX Pokemon that took a really long time to charge up. You could have a Dusknoir in the back sap away all the damage from it, so you don't lose two prizes. So even if like the Dusknoir kills it, like ends up dying from the attack, your opponent still only takes one prize for it. On top of that, I do know there's a card where, you know, based off your opponent's prizes, something bad will happen to them. So being able to force a knockout and do that to the opponent seems kind of nice. I think this card is ultimately a little bit too clunky. This being on a stage 2 is really gonna hurt its ability, even though I think the effect is really cute. I have to wait a little bit longer to see like what you can do with this, but yeah. Drifloon does 10 damage and then reduces the damage it takes by 20. That's not bad. 20 damage reduction is kind of nice. Drifblim unfortunately kind of sucks. And then we got whatever the hell these guys are. Take an energy from the energy zone and attach it to the Mesprit or Zelf. So we got 20 damage, pass an energy to one of the other guys. You can only use this attack if you have... Okay, this is 160 damage for 3 energy. We've actually seen this type of effect be really good in the card game previously. That said, this was an original Diamond and Pearl. This text is probably really good into a slower format. The only issue with this card is if decks are aggressive, then it's going to be really hard, because all these guys having so little HP at 70 means they are just prime fodder to get killed by anything aggressive. This was also not that great. I probably wouldn't be using this attack. You're mostly just like, if you have to, Uxie can attack to Mesprit. Yeah, so you'd use this attack, attach to Mesprit with Mind Boost, and then possibly retreat and go into Mesprit afterwards, or just use it as a body blocker, and the Mesprit can come in. You have to discard all energy too. Oh, this is so tough to evaluate. I do think if you're building this deck, you might go 2 Uxie, 2 Mesprit, 1 Zelf. Maybe you go 2 Zelf just for the consistency, but yeah. This once again depends on like how aggressive the metagame is. So if the metagame is dominated by decks like Pikachu, for example, then I think Mesprit doesn't have a chance because the game will be too fast for it. But like that's too much damage to be passing upon a basic Pokemon. And honestly, like between Mythical Slab and Pokeball and a new item card that comes out, you probably have a really decent chance of getting this all set up. So I'm actually going to go ahead and give this some notoriety here. We have the Giratina, has free retreat, if this Pokemon is a energy, which is nice because normally it has 3, but the other text on it is not that exciting, so I don't think this card is that great. Then we have this Cresselia, which does 50 and then heals 20. This HP is too low. This doesn't seem to choose Tangrowth. The HP is too low to really like be a taking strategy, so unfortunate for the Cresselia. That said, I do know that there's a Cresselia EX. I might have to like pause and try to look that up, but yeah. Rhyhorn does 40 damage, the Rhydon does 70, Rhyperior does 150. Does the Brock attach to Rhydon? I feel like I've seen people talk about the Rhydon before, but let's see. Onyx or Golem. So Rhydon just has no support, got it. Discard the top 3 cards of your deck. For 150 energy, or 150 damage. I've talked about like 150 being good. I forgot what card it was earlier. I don't remember. But like, the damage is good, but 4 energy with like no reliable way to ramp onto it is kind of bad. Ignore this text, by the way. This text is all bait. This doesn't matter, because if you're launching this attack, you've probably kind of won the game already. Kinda. It's like Gyarados, but like Gyarados is way better setup. I don't know, like, sure there's a one prizer, but this text, okay, so I guess this text is kind of relevant, because if you're using this attack and then you have to pay this cost, you're kind of not doing anything for the rest of the game, I think. That seems bad. You play this in the chat-out engine. I really like the chat-out engine. So the chat-out engine is, we need to go Mythical Island. The channel engine is you play this and a bunch of fossils, and you play down the fossils, you play down your X speeds, and you kind of deck yourself out really quickly. The issue is that like channel, you play it with Gyarados, because what you're really trying to do is draw into Misty as quickly as possible, so Misty can ramp onto your Gyarados EX, and so you're really playing all the other stuff and trim down your deck so you can get to your more relevant cards quicker. Here, you'll be chat-onning, but just so like you have all the cards in your hand, as opposed to having them in the deck, and that sounds like it sucks, because you have to attach energy to chat-on, and then you have to get 4 energies off it. It just seems bad. Ignore my talk here. This card just seems way too overcommittal when you have Mesprit right above it. Gligar does 20 damage, cool. Gliscor does that 20 more for each heads. This attack is probably too inconsistent. Fighting has a better 1 energy attacker in the Primeape. I'm not even a huge fan of this Primeape, but I know it's been seeing some decent results in the fighting piles that are available. And so you'd rather just do this, because Gliscor, on a good day, will do 60 damage, where the Primeape is always going to do 50. And so I don't want to calculate the averages on this, because it sounds like a pain, but I would say the average is like 40 damage from 1 energy. And you'd rather just use this Primeape, who also has like a slew of like decent Makeys with good attacks. We have Hitmontop, just raw Hitmontop doing 50 damage. He is very cute though. I will give him that. This is very adorable. Anyways, there's Hitmontop. What the fuck? Oh, Probopass is Steel type. Okay, so we got this pass here, kind of whatever. There's another Pokemon pass on. Oh, Glade. Yeah, we'll talk about him soon. Regirock. So this guy has effective 140 HP, except like minus 20 damage in pocket. Each attack is kind of relevant, because most guys can't one-shot you. They mostly do like 2-8, 3-8 KOs. Okay, so I know there's a Lucario. I'm going to talk about Lucario right now, first, before I talk about the rest of this. Where is he? Where's Lucario? Yeah, he's Lucario. Your Pokemon do 20 more damage to the active Pokemon. So the other guy is actually swinging for like, he can't swing for like 100, 120. Okay, 4 energy is just too much though. If we had another way of actually ramping onto this, like maybe, but we don't have good fighting ramp. There's nothing that like puts energy on the fighting type Pokemon, which sucks. Because otherwise, like, if you could get this guy attacking by like turn 3, maybe excusably turn 3, he's almost good. Because the ability is kind of nice. He shrugs off like all this like 1 damage or 20 attack nonsense that you'd see with like, what's it called? With like any of the evolving stage 1s or even some of the stage 2s. But, you know, 4 energy is way too much. I would have even taken like 3 energy for like 70 damage. Because then you could bump that up with Lucario, but 4 energy might be too much. He's like really close to greatness, but I'm not gonna give it to him. Granito says, I think it's like Kabuto numbers, right? Kabuto does that amount of damage. Oh no, he's better than Kabuto, that's crazy. Like straight up, besides having 1 more retreat cost, but that's fine. And this guy, the opponent's knocked out. This Pokemon takes 50. Oh, it's so gross. You have to summon stage 2 fossil just to take 50 damage? Oh, get me out of here. I love the stage 2 fossils too. Like, I actually love Kabutops. This guy does like, this guy's kind of swag. Because starting with the fossil is nice, because it allows you to rank into, well, I can't pull up the Mankey, but there's the Mankey that does 30 damage and then 10 to itself, which sets up this guy. So I'm always looking for fossils to play alongside the Mankey. And so I was really hoping that the Repartus is good, but oh man, I just can't accept this. Maybe there's a world where you play this as the top end, and your fighting deck is more like Primate, Marshadow into Rampardo's top end, but that just, I don't know, that just does not seem good enough. I could be wrong though. I could definitely see myself possibly being wrong. We have another type of Wormadam. This one is 70 damage. Woo. That's bad. we definitely get more efficient damage for that. Lucario, I'm mixed on Lucario. Because, like, this ability reads really good, especially because the ability stacks. If you have 2 Lucarios, this does 40 damage. But I just don't know what you're supposed to pair this with. Like, we kind of talked about Regirock already. I'll go ahead and look at the Glade real quick, because the Glade, like, has decent enough efficiency. If you go first, you can attack with this by attaching 2 energies to it. And so doing, like, 70, possibly 90 damage immediately, and then having the Lucario to follow up on it is maybe okay. But 90 damage on a stage 2, it has a lot of HP. I can maybe see this card working. I'm just, like, not impressed. If this card works, it's just kind of boring. It'll do a minimum of 110 damage with both Lucario setup, which is cute. But I don't have too much else to add on besides that. And the add-on is also just, like, way too energy inefficient. Like, if this guy with the good text on him, it is a basic, can't do 100 damage before, like, doing 120 isn't going to change anything. Let me go ahead and look at the other fighting types we have available, just to, like, double check on things. Making Dugtrio do more damage is really funny if you keep hitting heads, because it means that, like, eventually the opponent is gonna, you know, not be able to hit you, and then you're gonna kill them faster. Kabutops is honestly the most interesting one, because Kabutops, like, heals damage based off the damage that you did. So if you have double Lucario up, this does 90 and heals 90. And even though, like, 140 isn't, like, a lot, it's, like, enough to shrug off against the aggro deck. So, like, there's the possibility there. Finding fossils is just a bitch, right? And then Mythical Island, we have the Primate, and making the Primate hit for 90 for 1 energy could be cute. This guy only does 100, which is, like, okay. Like, I don't mind that this guy only does 100, but he could be a little bit better if he just did a little bit more. So I could definitely see, like, Lucario maybe fitting in, but I just don't think he's as... just don't think he's needed. As the guy who, like, plays some of the most fighting out of everyone that I know, being the king of the Primate and the monkey and the Mankey. Oh, you know what, actually, there's also the Aerodactyl. The Aerodactyl might appreciate this damage buff. Yeah, I'm not entirely too convinced Lucario is, like, super good, but there's merit. I think the issue is that, like, all the numbers I want to hit on the Pokemon, you need double Lucario to make it sound good. So, like, you know, Gallade doing 110 damage sounds good, but you have to set up a stage 2 and 2 stage 1s. And that means that the Riolu has to live, right? So then you have to find something else to swap into, and that could be bad. Yeah. It sounds a little bit too clunky. I can eat my words on this one. And Lucario has the potential to be really good if we get more fighting types, but currently, I think maybe it might just be a little not good enough. A little too rogue. I'll give it a modest, like, low tier 2, high tier 3 type of vibe. We finally have some more dark Pokemon. I know dark Pokemon got, like, hella shafted. Say they have, like, steel types. So let's go ahead and talk about them. We have Honchkrow. He does 50 damage. I don't think that's great. 50 damage for 2 energy, even though it's on any Pokemon, it's just not great enough. If this did 60 and knock out, like, a lot of these Pokemon that you see, so you see, like, a Riolu 60, you know, a lot of, like, the evolving Pokemon sometimes don't even get 70 HP, so doing more than that would be nice. And you can even bump this with Giovanni, because Giovanni will only do 10 plus to the active, so I don't think the Honchkrow is that good, unfortunately. Sneasel has, you know, a funny attack. On average, is going to do 20, but it can do more. And you'll be mad when it does more. I do think the Weavile is, like, almost good. So, I really like Executor EX. We've talked about this card way too often now. But, like, 1 energy on a stage 1 is, like, you know, the best case you can have for being good. Because if you go first, you're evolving, and then you're also getting more damage than you would as a basic. As opposed to, like, you know, a basic Pokemon using attack turn 1, going second. And so, like, Eggy is good, but Eggy, once again, has a huge HP count, and he can do just a little bit more damage. And, you know, this one has a slightly extra condition on it, and that, like, your opponent has to have damage on it. Which I do think that the condition is nice on it, but it's, like, weird for me to say. like exactly how good I think this is. I think the card is okay if you're playing some type of dark related deck. Like for example, I think you could do like Coughing Weavile, or Wheezing Weavile. I think like maybe that's okay because you can save the wheezing and then go into this, and then this guy will do excessive damage. You don't need a lot of energies for these guys. The Arbok is like kind of okay, but Arbok was okay because he prevented people from retreating, which one, forces them to rack up poison damage, and two, it pretty much guarantees you get your KOs. But I think with Cyrus, now if you do damage to something, you can pull it back up with the Cyrus, and so I think this is actually one of the best users for Cyrus. And we also have a slew of really good psychic types. So this guy hitting, what's it called? He can hit the Besprints, or the Besprit and stuff for like 50 damage. If they have any damage on them, they're just instantly dead. That's pretty cool. And obviously, I don't need to talk too much about like Mewtwo EX, who has been really good. And then even Mythical Island, we have Mew EX, which has also been a really good partner for that. So I do think that there's actually a really good place for the Weavile, and we might actually have a decent attacker in pair with the Wheezing. I think we've been really close to having a good Wheezing archetype, but we've really needed something in color, and the in-color options just weren't good enough until we got the Weavile. So that's my take. I think the Weavile is like maybe a tier 1, tier 2 deck. We have a upsetting Mariana that doesn't do a whole lot, and yeah. Also, we have a Stunky, a Krogunk, and a Glameow in the set. We have this weird card, and I don't know why we have this card. It allows you to put a random Glameow, Stunky, or Krogunk into your deck. So if you need to specifically tutor for those, then, we have that card. So I'm going to, pin that a little bit into the evaluation here. This has 70 HP, and then does 10 damage, which is okay. It gets fetched by a Team Grunt, so let's see if the side attacker is good. And Skuntank, isn't this just Rose Raid? We talked about this already. I'm not talking about Rose Raid again. Rose Raid just does not seem that great. Spiritomb, 10 damage on each of your opponent's Pokemon. Okay, this effect is really good actually. One, because this enables the Weavile. So if you have to start with something, going Spiritomb on the first turn going second is really powerful, and then you can go ahead and X-Speed out and go into Weavile, and then now Weavile is doing insane damage to everything. Holy crap, Weavile seems insane. This might be my day 1 deck. What pack is this in? That's in the Palkia pack? Okay. Where's this one in? This is in the Palkia pack. Okay, hold on. Hold on, this is actually kind of insane. Yeah, so 10 damage on everything is like good snipe. It does make the Hodgecrow a little bit more appealing now, because like 50 damage on top of the 10 is kind of okay. This is also colorless too. So you can play this in anything. Okay, hold on. What else can you play this with? Is there anything that cares about like your opponent's stuff being damaged, or is it just the Weavile? I'm not sure. I think you could maybe play this in Greninja too. So you play this as like the bottom end of Greninja, and then you just use this for a couple of turns. It's 80 HP, so it's a little bit durable. And then they finally knock this out. You send in Greninja, and the shuriken attack or the shuriken plus your base attack will probably be good for knocking things out. You could also obviously play this in Dragonite, though I don't think Dragonite's gonna get any better because there's like, it's fucking Dragonite. It takes forever to charge up, and it's a pain in the ass when it doesn't give you the right energies. But there's a chance it's good at Dragonite. And Spiritomb, I think, might be the best starter for that. I know traditionally Dragonite has gone for options to stall with like Frostmoth and stuff like that, but that's not like super great when you have to keep charging the energies up onto the other Pokemon. So I think the Spiritomb actually has a case to be played in Dragonite. And I don't know, like, typically what Dragonite does is attack ends the game, right? Yeah, I don't know. The Spiritomb seems really good. That seems like a fucking broken card. What the hell? It's like, he's not even punished. He gets 1 retreat and 80 HP. That's a privilege right there. Scroopy seems kind of whatever. Yeah, it doesn't seem that great. And then Drapion does flip 4 coins. 40 for each heads. If 2 of them are heads, you poison them. Okay, so if this paralyzed them, that could maybe be excusable, but that's a lot of variance on one card. I'd rather just play Jolteon. So Jolteon is the same exact text, except he doesn't poison the opponent if you hit 2. And the poison doesn't even matter that much, because if you hit 2, you're only doing like 90 damage, and 90 damage is pretty good for like 2 energy, but it's not good enough for 3 energy. And even if this can hit higher, and I'm, a believer in the coin flips, I don't think like this is something worth ramping into. I don't want to put 3 energies on my Drapion and be disappointed when it dies, right? Krogunk. This is also another thing that could get cheated out by the Team Grunt. Flip a coin for each Pokemon you have in play. So this counts itself, I believe. So this has the possibility to do an 80 damage. Okay. It's a good Pokemon to be on a basic. And this one's honestly not that bad either. So this is kind of what I was talking about with like the Jolteon. And that like the Jolteon is kind of okay, but he doesn't have a good place to play him. Yeah, he just does 40 for each Z flip. And so this one does require you to have Pokemon in play, but it's on a 1 prizer. And he can search out with the Team Grunt, but the Team Grunt isn't like the greatest thing. It's just like it's like your 3rd or 4th copy of Pokeball, except it grabs you like the Krogunk, who's like the Pokemon you probably want the most. So you'd probably be playing like Krogunk, Toxicroak. I don't know what other Pokemon you'd be playing after that. It might just be like Wheezy because they're tanky. This one I'm gonna have a hard time evaluating. I think if this is 100 HP, this would be a little bit more passable. But 90 HP might be too low, since it ties to Pikachu. And so if Pikachu starts attacking, you start losing your field, you lose your ability to actually knock it out. And so you start to fall behind. So this card has a really hard time staying ahead. I think that's the only issue with it, is that you might fall too far behind, and then you lose after that, which sucks. So I think this is also like another like tier 2, tier 3 deck, where it's not going to be any of the top meta decks, but it's like, it's almost good enough for contention. You can probably streak with it, you could probably get 5 wins with it, but I wouldn't hedge on it winning a tournament, for example. This Darkrai, cool art, but 3 energy for 6 damage is not that great. Well, I guess Sleep is like the same thing as Articuno, but like, once again, the Articuno only gets a pass because like Misty is dumb and stupid sometimes. And even now, it's like even better because we have really good ways of ramping water energy, or we don't have any ways of ramping dark energy. So this guy just does not seem that strong. It does have a little bit more HP, but yeah, it doesn't seem very. Also, 2 retreat costs as well, so you have to play Leafs instead of the X speeds. This guy though, I did see this guy earlier. When you attach an energy, do 20 damage to the opponent's active Pokemon. So this could also trigger, what's it called, Weavile. So if you have this in the active, you attach an energy, it'll put 20 on it, and then you can like leaf out and go to the Weavile afterwards. But that seems like too much of that. I'd rather just use Spiritomb. I don't think this guy is bad though, because like, attaching an energy to this just gets you extra damage. You just think about this as like, you attach an energy, you get extra 20 damage this turn. Except this is a contingent on you attacking, so it just stacks up. I kind of vibe with this. The only issue is he doesn't have any ramp. He might just be too slow. He might be too fair as well. But like, I really want to believe in the energy ramp. But I feel like by the time that you manually attach 3 energies on this, especially if you go first, like your opponent's gonna have 3 attacks against you before you get to do anything. This guy might just be dead, and then you've lost all your like reasons for attaching energies, which can really suck. So I think this guy's cool, but he might be a little bit too bad right now. If you really need like an extra damage buff at Dark, you have like the Wheezing Koga package. I think that's where my stance on this is going to be, but like, I would watch out for this guy. This guy's dangerous. Skarmory, he does 50 damage if he has a tool. For a metal energy, low-key not bad. And like I said earlier, when I was talking about Pachirisu, a lot of the tools that we have are pretty defensive. So you put the Rocky Helmet or the Giant Cape on this guy. Giant Cape will make this 100. Still does a Pikachu because of weakness, because why wouldn't Pikachu hit everything for weakness? But 1 energy 50 damage on a basic is not that bad. I just don't know where this fits into. I don't know if there's a metal deck where you're here to play this. Registeel's too boring and vanilla, unfortunately. We have Bastiodon. I was actually looking, if any damage is done to this flip coin, take 100 less damage. Okay, so actually, I'm thinking down the same route that I'm thinking with like Primeape and stuff. So what's good about Primeape and Mankey is that you always start with it, and what's really important about that deck is that Mankey has to attack first in order to put the damage on it, so that Primeape can go crazy afterwards. So you like having fossils in your deck because it increases the chance that you see the Mankey off the mulligan, seen as like you can't start the game with just a fossil. And so if you go Dialga, well, I'll talk about Dialga soon, but if you start Dialga, that means that you're always going to have it in the active, and you can start setting this guy out from the bench. That's a crazy ability to have. I'll take fucking 80 damage if it means like half the time my opponent doesn't get to attack me. That is crazy. Like, Dialga Bastiodon might be crazy. It's something I was looking forward to as well. Flip coin until you get tails. It says 30 more damage. Oh, God, it's fucking the Misty coin flip. I'm not playing this, dog. We have Bronzon, 20 less. I have to look at Melmetal again. I always forget what this asshole does, but I love him. I love Melmetal, but yeah, he's 4 energy for 120. And then he takes minus 20 from everything. This guy can get separated around as well. Whereas Melmetal, he's a little bit chonkier. Which one of these is better? Honestly, these both kind of suck. And the issue with Melmetal is he's way too slow. Damage is good. This one attacks a little bit earlier too. Honestly, I don't even have a second Melmetal on my account, so I've never played a Melmetal deck, unfortunately. You know, as much as I love Melmetal, I've heard nothing but disappointment from this guy, so I haven't been able to play him, and I don't think I really would, just because it seems so weak currently, but with the Dialga, I have to reevaluate everything. Anyways, since we're talking about Dialga so much, I might as well just talk about him. He takes 2 energy and then ramps it to one of your bench Pokemon, and he also does 100 damage for 4 energy. And honestly, the second attack kind of blows. I wish it was like 3 energy instead, because it means that you could chain a Dialga into another Dialga. I'm thankful he only has a true retreat cost, as opposed to like a 3, because if he was a 3, oh my goodness, that'd be miserable. But I've been thinking about this guy because this guy is a good starter, but he's not something you want to finish the game off with. And so you really need some top end. So like this could like maybe be a top end, but this seems just a little bit too weak. But the Bastiodon has 160 HP and then randomly, you know, checks your opponent. And most of the Pokemon that you'll see, because you don't see a lot of Stage 2 EXs like I said, won't be able to live to 2 attacks from this. So even though this attack is good for knocking out Pikachu, this was slightly more efficient. Even then, like, against a bulkier Pokemon, I'm not gonna say Charizard because Charizard might just straight up knock this out, but, you know, you go against, what Pokemon do we have with a lot of HP? Surely there's something in here that can catch my mind. Issue is that, like, Genetic Apex has a lot of basic EXs. Let's, the Venusaur. So you do 80 plus 80 plus 30. Venusaur probably heal. Okay, so mathematically, I think the Melmetal slightly edges it out because I think you'd rather have 120 damage instantly than doing 80 over 2 turns quickly. But it's still good, right? I think this is like one of the most untested archetypes that we'll have to see. I'm not as confident like Dialga plus Melmetal or Dialga plus Bastiodon will be super good, but I think there's a chance for this to be really powerful. Of course, like the set could be a little flaky if like you can't get your fossils on time, which is typically the issue with like the fossil archetypes. Whereas like Kabutops can be strong, gain the fossil first without any way to tutor it out kind of blows. I'm really confident in like this pick being really good, but I'm less confident in this one making waves, because yeah, fossils suck, and then this is also a coin flip ability, so this also has just the chance to fail. I'd give this like an honest tier 2, honest tier 3, and then same thing like the Melmetal too. The only thing that I'm like so far like super convinced on is really good is like the Weavile Spiritomb, maybe the Mesprit, and then like the Empoleon Rotom stuff seems good. But yeah, Dialga seems okay. We have Probe Pass here. I've been skimming over this guy, and that's basically because like flip 3 coins for 80 damage or 130. I don't know, it just doesn't seem that great for 4 energy. Like, 4 energy, you could just do 120 damage, as opposed to, like, only... I don't want to do the math here, but having a not 50% chance to do 130 seems really scuffed. This guy also seems okay. Like, maybe you could just fucking or Dialga onto this guy and play it super low to the ground. But doing 120 yourself does kind of ruin the point of ramping all that energy on in the first place. Here's the other hype card, Gible into Giboy in the card shop. It's like the first effect of the game that like fucking draws a card. Discard a card, draw a card. I'd fucking like go with that shit. And that's really important because go in there like the Cynthia's down there. That's really important because you want to draw into your Cynthia to ramp up your damage so your asshole does 150 damage. And 150 is really good because, like I said, this is gonna knock out Mewtwo, this is gonna knock out Moltres, this is gonna knock out... does it knock out Weavile? Hold on. I think that guy had like 130, 140. This knocks out Weavile. So, this seems really good. And this only requires 2 energy. That said, you do have to win the coin flip on whether or not you get Fighting or Water. But having the ability to actually draw into your combo pieces seems really strong. I think this really just comes down to the people are going to have patience for energy coin flips on whether they're going to get Water or Fighting, but I think this guy is really strong. I do think that the Garchomp is probably stronger than the Togekiss, where I think like the Togekiss is a little bit safer, having only the 1 energy type, and it also isn't Psychic, which means they have access to Mythical Slab right here, which allows you to, you know, more consistently get your Psychic types. So I think this one has like an easier time setting up, but if people are still playing Sabrinas, then this text will suck for the opponent. But the other one has draw power, and it kind of just hits the number that you need to hit immediately. So I think Garchomp has a real chance at popping off here. I might be playing to the hype a little bit, but I want to. I really want to. And he is a discard for a draw effect. So if you just have a card that isn't good, like, oh, I don't need my early game starter, whatever that is, right? Like, let's just say you're playing like Chatot, and you don't need the Chatot anymore, so you just like discard Chatot, draw a different card, or discard a Pokeball, draw a different card. That seems so strong. We have Lickitung. Oh god, the other Lickitung like infinite coin flip bullshit for like 3 energy, right? Where is he? 3 energy, flip a coin until heads, use 60 times. You know what? I'll take fucking 50 damage with 3 energy, whatever. And this guy's probably not good either. Flip, oh my god, it's the same thing. But he does 100 damage base. No, this guy's not good. Anyways, we got this EV. Flip a coin, if heads, you do 20 more damage. The other EVs that we have are... I don't know what happened there. The other EVs that we have seem to be kind of okay. You got like 20 damage. You have the fucking big coin flip one. You have Growl. I don't think anyone's going to be playing this EV over the others unless they just like this art. But, I mean, it's there. It's an option. I don't think anyone is ever going to give up the fucking dopamine they get from hitting, like, 5 heads on this. So, you know, this one just came in at a disadvantage. We have Porygon, okay damage, Porygon 2, upsetting damage, and PZ, oh my goodness. So this one randomly fucks up one of your opponent's energies. The only issue with this is that this is stage 2 and it requires 3 energy, which means that, let's just say you go second. By the time you get 3 energies on this, your opponent will have at least gotten 2 energies. And so there's a chance that, like, this can fuck them up, but I feel like very rarely is this effect actually going to be really good. It's really cute, don't get me wrong, but it's too inconsistent. And also, like, quite a few Pokemon have, like, a 1 Catalyst cost on their energy, so even if you jam one of their energies into the wrong type, like, most of the time they're still going to be able to attack. So, Porygon's Z is cute, but it's not going to be great. Apom has decent damage, and this was flip 2 coins. Yeah, no, that's probably not good. Do we have something comparable to this? Oh, this is like Executor. Okay, but Executor comes with all the bulk. It can hit something's weakness, even though, like, Grass is one of the least relevant types. I guess Grass gets even better when you can hit this weakness, huh? and then colorless doesn't do anything. Yeah, I don't know why you'd run this over Executor. The answer is you don't. 4 do damage, discard a tool. If you hate tools, fuck you, I guess. Staravia. I don't know why Manaphy is here, but it's cool. Sure. I'll give it that. I like Manaphy. I like seeing him here. And then we got Staraptor. Cool. We've seen this before. It's not great. It only is passable in the Arbok because you have the Weezing that poisons them, and it's the whole archetype. But like, you're not really gonna put 3 energies on a Staraptor for 80 and be like, oh, you can't retreat. I'm safe. This one is definitely text on a card. The issue is that like, by the time you want to do this, I think it's way too early in the game. And then they can evolve, like, if they evolve, things don't really change. If they knock you out, it's just like, if this card becomes good, like, I'll fucking do a barrel giveaway or some shit. I don't know. I can definitely see somebody trying to do something cute with this effect, but Super Fade is just not that. It's not, like, immediately powerful. It's never gonna earn you a prize. And so you have to be saving up for something crazy. And honestly, the Pokemon Pocket doesn't have these insane payoffs. Like, if you were trying to use an effect like this in the regular card game, it'd be like, you set the opponent down to 1 HP, and you use poison to kill them, so you only have 1 prize on the field, and you can technically beat anything. Or, I've seen stuff before where you, like, set the opponent down to 11 HP, so you can play, like, a card that takes, like, 2 extra prizes when you knock something out. But we don't have anything like that in Pocket. So, unless it's something, like, absurd like that comes out, I'm not expecting Super Fade to do anything. And the Barrel is hardly worth discussing either. 2 energy for 60, discussing. This does 20 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. I don't think anything is gonna play this, but like, if you're forced to play this, I guess you're not mad about putting damage on something, so you can Cyrus boss it up. I don't think anything's gonna play this, but if you really are doing like a low to the ground stuff, or low to the ground aggro deck, like maybe. Like, if you really hate Spiritomb for some reason, you can maybe justify this in the Weavile deck, right? Yeah, maybe. Glameow is another Pokemon you get off the Team Rocket stuff, or Team Galactic stuff, but I mean, people play this with like the big key shit, right? It's like 1 energy, 50 damage if you hit heads. So sometimes it just high rolls the game. Sure, why not? Interrupt. Your opponent reveals their hand, choose the card you find there, and shuffle it into their deck. Oh, this is cute, because you actually get to choose the card, as opposed to it being random. Because now we had, Persian. Where is he? Persian. Yeah, this guy will randomly discard a card, but this one puts it into the deck, which obviously isn't that good. At least with, like, the Persian, you can, like, knock out their evolution, and then, like, you can maybe make them concede. This one just seems really annoying. The most I can see, like, this working with is another supporter that we get in the set, or even, like, red card, maybe. But I don't think you want to build your whole strategy around this, because the issue is that Pokemon always gives you an infinite amount of energy, even if it's only 1 energy per turn, and so eventually they're going to be able to attack with something. So I think this is too slow to be broken, but it's, like, a kind of cool effect. Shout out. This is, on average, 30 damage. Or, I guess, on average, throughout the course of 2 turns, this is gonna be 60 damage, I think. It's a card, for sure. Other Chatot is definitely better, but they're not even a comparison besides having the same name. Spin! Oh my god, Spin Storm. What do you mean? What do you mean we have fucking the Fossil Aerodactyl with the same text without the coin flip? Wait, what? Oh, you put it into their hand. I was gonna say, like, the other Aerodactyl is also a coin flip, but this puts it into their deck. Okay, low-key, putting something back into your opponent's hand kinda doesn't matter, so, like, this put into the deck is obviously good, but, like, if you put it into your opponent's hand, it doesn't matter. But if your opponent has, like, a Mewtwo with, like, 3 energies on it, and you shuffle their shit back into the deck, and they lose all of their energies, they're gonna be pissed. So, in a sense, I'm saying this is the world's craziest tech card. If you play this, you're absolutely insane. Like, fuck their Moltres, fuck their Charizard, just spin them out of there. I could see this being played by some batshit insane player who really hates his greedy stage 2 evolution decks. But otherwise, I don't think it's that great. As said, like, compared to most of the other slop that we've seen, this one definitely has a place. The fuck is he doing? He's just the fucking hitting out the pole like a stripper? Oh my goodness. This attack does more damage equal to the damage on this Pokemon. Oh, this is a revenge. Or not revenge, it's a outrage, yeah. This guy's a lot of HP. And you don't feel good about attacking him. Is this guy okay? No, I think 4 energy is too much, even on a colorless Pokemon. So, also, like, the payoff of this card is that you want him to take damage, so he does more damage in return. But, if you have a card like that, you don't necessarily want the energy cap to be super high, because you don't want to commit a lot of energy to something who, like, requires the opponent to hit it and become more weakened first, right? It's sort of the same issues that we talked about with, like, opportunity cost earlier. It's like, well, you can, continually resupply the Infinite PX with a bunch of energies, and, that could maybe be okay. But it feels bad to commit this much to something that already takes a lot of work to get going. And so if you put 4 energies on this and he's only doing 50 damage, you're sad. But if he's doing more damage, you're happy, but then he gets knocked out and you just lost 4 energies on the field. So, I don't think the Regigigas is good unless we get, like, another crazy energy ram system. We have 2 of the fossils. These are for the Cranianos and the Shieldon. And now we finally get to talk about the items. This one seems okay. It's nice that we can trade out Pokemon that we don't need for a different Pokemon in your deck. That said, oh no, this does say switch. So, it does mean that, like, you're not going to get the same Pokemon back. This is okay. I just don't know what decks are going to need it. I do think that we have some really good supporters coming out, and so it's getting tougher to, like, suggest, like, oh, like, you should be running this card. I think Mewtwo is the only deck so far that has this issue of not having enough deck space to run all the cards they want. And so we're starting to get to the point where I think, like, decks are actually going to have to start cutting cards that they want to run. And I'm not just talking like, oh, I can't run the potions that I want to run in here, like my double X speed, because those don't matter. Most of the time, like, your potions don't matter. But this can matter. And same thing with, like, other supporters, like Giovanni or your Sabrinas or your Leafs. Like, those things actively matter a lot. And so this card is good for matching your consistency, especially if you're playing, like, different evolution lines. You need to find a different Pokemon. But, like, is it going to be good enough to make the cut? I do think this card is very good, by the way. Don't get me wrong. I do think there's some decks that are going to opt to not run this, but I think any evolution deck should probably be running this because they need a way to more consistently find their evolution lines. And so let's say you have a stage 1 in your hand, but you already have the stage 1 in play, and you're just looking for the stage 2. You play this swap out and try to get the stage 2, which is better than nothing that we have, or better than something else, right? And that's the only real item in the set. But we have 3 tools, and tools, for people who haven't played regular TCG, are just things that you could attach to your Pokemon, and then they stay there as a bonus effect. So this one just gives a Pokemon plus 20 HP. And I think that we had blue before. I think blue was nice, but I think this severely just outclasses blue, because blue is only for that turn, and so you have to play it at that time. And so the Giant Cape is good because it allows you to, play in advance. And as far as I know, we don't have any good, like, tool removal stuff yet. So if you put this on a Mewtwo in the Mewtwo mirror match, you're going to be able to live your opponent's side drive now. They'll have to do the other attack against you, like Psychic Sphere. Hold on, I'm looking this up because I feel insane for not remembering this attack name. Yeah, Psychic Sphere. So they have to side drive and Psychic Sphere you in order to knock you out, which kind of blows. I think this card's really good. Mathanes typically tend to be good, and especially because, like, Pokemon Pocket's numbers are so, like, I feel like they feel flat, where, like, Thanes relatively stay the same, and you're still trying to reach the same benchmarks. So, like, the Giant Cape is really good. It could also possibly allow you to, like, make your 90 HP dudes live a Pikachu attack, if that's relevant. Not sure where that's relevant. Maybe it's a... Oh, you know what? You maybe play this with, like, a Primate. Where's that guy? Yeah, hold on. This guy. because he wants 10 damage on himself from the Mankey anyways. And so if you put the cape on, he'll have 100 HP, which means that he can stay alive, kill a Pikachu, and then kill the next thing that comes in afterwards. So like a lot of good uses of Giant Cape. Not every deck is gonna run this because not every deck this HP difference is gonna matter, but there's a few where like the breakpoints do matter, and that really just comes down to like extremely, personal cases. Like I talked about earlier, I think Mewtwo is a prime example of a deck that might want to run this type of card. Also, one thing I do not know is stuff like this. So, in the Pokemon card game, we have two cards called like Penny and Professor Churro. Penny says put all Pokemon and all cards attached, or put a Pokemon and all cards attached to it back into your hand. And then Professor Churro says pick up a Pokemon, but you have to discard all the cards attached to it. So the big question is, does Bunny Expeditioner or Koga keep the tool? Because this says you put the Pokemon back into your hand, and so I'm inclined to believe that you would lose the tool, because it doesn't say, like, put the cards attached to it back into your hand. So I'm inclined to believe that, like, if you have the Giant Cape on the Koga, or on the Weezing, and you use Koga on it, you're going to lose the Giant Cape, which sucks a lot. I don't have anything else to add on to that thought, but I don't think you should be thinking, like, oh, you can put this on Weezing, and then you'll live a lot longer. And, I still think there's maybe a possibility for you to be playing this on Weezing anyways, but yeah. Another card that I low-key think is kind of good at Weezing is this one. Because if your opponent's hitting you multiple times, then this racks up. And we've already kind of seen, like, how surprisingly good Druddigon is. Druddigon, if you don't know, is the Dragon type from Mythical Island. This asshole, he makes your, like, if your opponent hits you and you take some chip damage, and that can be relevant. So having a tool card that could give this to any Pokemon, I think, is kind of nice. Druddigon is a nice rule compression still, because he's one Pokemon, and he has the ability on him, which means you're not making deck slots for both a Pokemon with bulky HP and the tool card to run alongside it. But, it's still kind of nice to have, and sometimes the numbers do matter. I can't think of a good example off the top of my head, but Weezing was kind of the first one I imagined. I imagine with some of the dark stuff or some of the water type stuff, this is okay. Because with chip damage strategies, typically your damage is a lot lower, but in exchange, you're able to manipulate the damage a little bit more. So taking your first knockout might be hard, but because you've been putting damage on everything else, the rest of the knockouts are really easy. And so Rocky Helmet can maybe play into that. And same thing like the Weavile. So if they hit your Sneasel, then Weavile's attack will be active, but they can also not attack you, which means they're not getting damage, and that might fuck up their numbers later. And so, I see a lot of situations where the Rocky Helmet can be useful. I think this is, once again, a situation if you have the deck slots for it, because you definitely have to run all your consistency cards first before you can run, like, the fancier stuff that would help you out. Unfortunately, we're going to end on a sour note. I don't think Lumberry is very good. Status effects aren't common enough in every matchup to worth teching for, and I don't think the status effects that are around are good enough to run the Lumberry for. We talked about like some paralysis or sleep dudes earlier that were kind of notable, but I don't think any of those decks are good enough that you're going to want to run the Lumberry to beat it, so we're just going to pass on that. And finally, we have 3 new supporters. I've already talked about a few of these, but I'll just go back. Team Galactic Grunt. It's an extra Pokeball for your, I guess, like, this is nice. So you're supposed to play this for, like, the Toxic Rogue strategy. And so having this guy pull out extra stuff just means you have extra Pokeballs to make sure that your team play attack works. So maybe. I still think you should be trying to do something a little bit better, but maybe you just run, like, 2 Glammeows, 2 Crogunks, and like Coffee Weezing as like your side, as like your other partner to pair with it, so you can make sure you actually get full damage out of your team play very often. So that guy seems like okay, but it's like a tier 3 deck. It's kind of like how I feel about Brock, where like Brock is okay, but like the Pokemon he supports are kind of middling. We have Cyrus. This guy's kind of crazy. Because I never thought we'd get boss's orders this early into the game, but they just decided to say, hey, fuck it. We are going to put this card into the game, and they're going to deal with it. I actually don't think this card is as strong as like people might have the impressions about, because boss's orders is really strong in the paper card game, But in that game, it's way easier to pull up a Pokemon like a Rotom V or a Squawkabilly, like a low HP 2-prizer, and take multiple prizes out of it, and knock out the support engines. But they have to have damage on them, so this is really only kind of good at chasing something that was trying to run away, or you have to have some other type of like spread damage setup. And honestly, like a lot of attackers have, or a lot of colors have like some type of way of attacking the bench. Like we kind of talked about like Zebstrika and Electabuzz earlier for lightning. Dark and Water have some of these options. So like there's options to set damage on something so you can Cyrus it up later. But typically like you'd want to hit something on the weaker side anyways. So yeah, it's a little tough to justify this. I think the Weavile deck makes the best use out of this because you'll actually be weakening stuff with the Spirit Tube anyways, and so you can find easy targets to kill, especially if they're not evolved, and get your prizes that way. But I don't think this is gonna like eliminate the use of Sabrina, and I think Sabrina will still be. I think Sabrina will still be good. I think if anything, you might run like a 1-1 split. You might run one Sabrina, one Cyrus. And might not commit to two of either of them, though you could still like go, oh, well, I just want the Sabrina because I'm really aggressive, and I'm going to push for knockouts anyways, so my opponent is going to have a lot of Pokemon, I'll find kills pretty easy. Or you just might be like, hey, I know when I want to gust something, and when I want to gust something is when I'm trying to kill a specific Pokemon, and so the Cyrus is really good then. But I don't think it's as black and white as, people will probably make it out to be. I think this card is strong. I think it's very meta-defining, but I don't think it's going to instantly eliminate the need for Sabrina. I already kind of talked about the Cynthia when we talked about the Garchomp and the Togekiss. I think Togekiss might suffer from the consequences of gusting in the game, but Sabrina, or Garchomp, doesn't have that same issue. Garchomp is just going to be slain for 150, kill a bunch of stuff, and then also has the additional card draw to get the places quicker. So, Cynthia, I think, is a good card. Volkner, we kind of talked about. I think he's really good with Electivire. I don't think he's good with Luxray. I think this card can make its own archetype of Pikachu EX. So, I think there's a huge plus in running it there. Dawn, this is a card I haven't been able to talk about yet, and I've been trying to think of where I want to slot this in, but I think there's a few places you can put this in. We talked about the Manaphy from earlier, so the Manaphy puts the water energy into play, and then you can use Dawn to move an energy onto a guy. So instead of having your energy split up, you just use the Dawn, as opposed to having to run another Eevee into a Vaporeon and set all this other stuff up. I'd rather just use the Dawn to move the energy around because it makes it easier. You can also just think of this as a tempo tool, so if you play an X speed, you can swap out and then use Dawn to put that energy from that Pokemon onto the active instead. And that's kind of nice. It allows you to flex around your energies a little bit. Same way that we sort of see Lieutenant Surge use. That so Lieutenant Surge has to be a bomb because it's only to a specific set of Pokemon, and it's really it's really nice that it can be used with the Raichu who does a bunch of damage, but you don't have the same type of flexibility where this is you move any energy from your bench to the active. I do think that you still can use this similar to Lieutenant Surge, but the Magneton is really nice because it generates energy for you, and you typically don't have a use for all this energy. So, you could maybe play instead of, what's it called? What do I forget? Instead of playing the Lieutenant or Volkner, Electivire, and Pikachu, you play Dawn plus Magneton and Pikachu. And so even if you are going first, you can still get a Pikachu attack turn 2 by evolving to Magneton, charging an energy, using Dawn to move it, and then using Circle Circuit pretty early on. And even though, sometimes it sucks going first, as long as you're getting your attack down early, that's still good enough, right? Other things like I said, the Manaphy is kind of okay. And the Retreat, all this other stuff. The only issue with Dawn is that, we don't have a lot of ways of, getting extra energy into the game yet. But as, energy becomes more, energy ramp becomes more common, and we get more cards with energy ramping effects, then I think the Dawn will continue to surprise us and be extremely strong. But for now, I think it's tame, and I think it has some good uses. It's not gonna, be super, super notable so far. And finally, we have Mars. At the same time, we got Boss's Orders, who is one of the most infamous supporters of the Pokemon TCG. We got the equivalent to Ed slash Marty slash Iono in the Pocket now. This is better than Red Card. I think, obviously. I think Red Card is only a card that you were able to play like super, super offensive turbo decks. Because you would want to play it going first, try to limit your opponent's hand and make sure they can't evolve and actually get set up while you're running their face in with like super early attacks. And I don't think there's a single deck in the game right now that actually wants to run the red card because you don't have good space for it. The Mars, on the other hand, seems really interesting because I feel like the decks that would take prizes early wouldn't be as harmed by the low hand size. What's usually good about lowering your opponent's hand size in regular TCG is you might strip their way of actually getting energy onto the field or finding the ways that they need to get the damage to kill you, since decks are usually a little bit more than just attaching energy and then doing your attack for knockout. Typically, a lot of these extra attacks have conditions tied to them that make them stronger for having, something to play, like Chiampao. You need energy to play, so you have to be ramping energies throughout the game, and Goldingo needs to have a bunch of energy to play. And, even some other stuff like Gardevoir, you have to constantly set up different attackers. You may have to find a tool to attach to your Pokemon, or train through a bunch of stuff. Charizard's like the only like super big example of a card that like kind of just does its own thing. But even then, with like Charizard, you would be playing all these other Pokemon that can like knock themselves out or find a way to disrupt your opponent. So I don't think this card isn't gonna translate as well into Pocket as it does into regular TCG. That said, I still think this card is really fucking annoying. Like, if your opponent Marses you on 2, like, no one's happy to play against Red Card, right? We can accept Red Card as, like, not fun to play against, but also not great at the same time. But Mars is just slightly better than that, because it's both a Red Card that has, a semblance of an upside. Especially against, like, any of these evolution decks. So if Garchomp becomes really good, for example, and let's say you're playing, like, a bigger EX deck like a Mewtwo, they really need the Cynthia to knock you out, so having Mars shuffle them down to, like, 2 cards left, or 1 card left, and it means they can't draw into their Cynthia, like, they might be in trouble. And so, like, I think this card is good, but 20 cards in Pocket, or, like, the 20 card decks, is going to make it really hard to fit in some of these like more opportunistic cards. A lot of people want to play cards that benefit their own strategy before they can focus on disrupting their opponent's strategy. So I really don't know where like Mars fits into all of this. This is a card that I know it's going to see play for sure, but I don't know where it's going to see play or what decks even have the space for this. Other than that seems to be the entire set for like Space Time Smackdown. I'll glance through some of these other arts quickly, but yeah. I think there's cool stuff in the set. I'm kind of looking forward to like Empoleon with maybe the Run and Frost. I also really like the Weavile and the Garchomp a lot. So, and then maybe I'll play the Dialga with the Bastiodon. But, those are the big things that have caught my interest in the set. If you guys want to see more Pocket content, you can go ahead and just let me know down below. I hope my review is comprehensible and understandable for you guys, and I hope I'm able to bring a fresh perspective to the game from someone who plays the regular TCG and has been decently accurate with, Pocket meta and stuff like that. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and head to bed. You guys